All-American, former Oklahoma State student and graduate, as well as, like we mentioned, the voice of the Golden Eagles at Oral Roberts, and man that has called his team all the way to the NCAA basketball championship game as the voice of the Red Raiders in basketball and baseball out there in Lubbock, Texas. Geoff Haxton joins us, and here I got to tell you this, Jeff. Good morning, first.
Morning, Robert.
The other thing, and you'll love this, on our site, Polk's report, which is on the new Sports Illustrated Maven network. When everything halted back on Thursday, March 12th, everything was canceled that day. Even the spring sports by the end of the afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a website or a radio show, now you got to get creative. Our first guest this morning was Cooper Castleberry, retiring Big 12 referee. So, you know, normally Cooper wouldn't jump to the head of the, but he was a great guest, by the way. Cooper's funny, good guy, good dude. But everybody's had to be enterprising. And one of the first things I said, we're going to do a mythical March Madness. And I wish it had caught on better. I don't think we got a ton of traction with it. But we had Oklahoma State in our selection because we picked Oklahoma State. We mythically said Oklahoma State was going to beat Kansas that Thursday when everything was canceled, and that they would win the next. Yeah, we had them winning the next day, which would again been against the winner of the Texas Tech game, which I thought would be Texas Tech.
Yeah,
so we had Oklahoma State. Yeah, we had OSU slide into the bracket. I think we had 6 or 7 Big 12 teams in the bracket. But what I wanted to get to, Texas Tech made it all the way to one step from the Final Four. We had Baylor and Texas Tech, and we played mythical sites. So all the regional out west was played at MacArthur Court in Eugene. The entire regional in the east was played at the I keep forgetting the name of it. The Palestra. We had all of the KU's regional in the Midwest was at Allen Fieldhouse, and we had Baylor and Texas Tech both in that regional that played all their games at Moody Coliseum at SMU. We had Baylor and Tech in the regional final, and it was an overtime game. Baylor hit a shot in overtime late to beat Tech and advance. But I thought it was a good season for the Red Raiders to make it all the way to the regional final to follow up that national championship appearance a year ago. So I just want to let you know, in the mythical March Madness, Tech gave a really good account of themselves.
Well, yeah, and we appreciate that. Obviously, it was certainly surreal and very interesting that Thursday morning, because after Rudy Gobert tests positive, I'm thinking there's no way that we're going to play, but there was never any direction that we weren't. And so I stayed up extra late, which I stay up late most nights, kind of waiting on hey, we're not going to play, because if the NBA is not going to play and Rudy Gobert's positive, that means anybody can get it. There's already going to be no fans. And I'm with you, by the way, Robert. I think Oklahoma State would have given KU all it wanted in that game, because you don't have 15,000 people there rooting for the Jayhawks anymore.
Sure.
It's a cavernous, empty building. And we were already talking about that scenario that, hey, it's going to look a lot different for the Jayhawks. And this was fantasy talk at that point, because what we thought would happen eventually happened. And so we were on the air 20 minutes into our pregame show, and we see the teams leave the court, and then the music stops, and then we see that the Big Ten and the AAC have decided not to play, and then we see the Texas managers packing up their bar stools, and we're like, boys, we're not going to play. And then it was about 10 seconds after that we see, hey, yeah, this thing's not going to happen. So we broke into our interview that we were playing and took it to the bottom of the hour and said, well, here's the situation. And you know, you said it too, that it was a really bad trip for me personally, because everybody on the Texas Tech travel party, men and women's side, got on one jet and came home after that cancellation Thursday. I got on the Texas Tech bus and went through Edmond down I-35 to go to my grandfather's funeral the next day. So as I'm going down there, the basketball season's been canceled. You see that, God, unbelievable. The baseball season has been a casualty of this as well. You want to talk about haymakers being thrown.
Yeah.
You're just getting blasted with bad news left and right, and that was really one of the worst days that I've experienced. But yeah, going back to the team, that was an NCAA play-in game that was about to happen with Texas Tech and Texas, and if the Red Raiders win, they're going to be in. If they lose, they're probably going to be out. But I think Tech was about to throttle Texas with Brock Cunningham out because of his injury in practice a couple of days before. They had added 4 rec player types to their roster because their numbers were so thin. And then after you win that, who knows? You just get in the dance and then let it fly. But none of us got that chance, unfortunately.
No, and I want to ask you this. I mean, and again, the results in our mythical tournament were based on historical odds for each of the seeds, and then we used dice, roll of the dice, with 1 through 6 being for the higher seeded team and 7 through 12 being for the lower seeded team, and that's the way we determined it. So it was luck of the dice and the odds from your seeding. I think we had Tech. I think we had, I'm trying to think. I think we had Tech as an 8 or 9. So we may have had Tech
That'd
seeded.
have been right.
Yeah. Okay. And here's the deal. I remembered how, and this was a tough year for Chris, and Chris Beard and the Red Raiders, because I know that, uh, you lost a lot. You lost some really good players off the team from the year before. But if you go back to non-conference, back before teams that know you so well, like they do in the league, are playing you, Tech was really good in the non-con, and I had the same feeling, and I wanted to know if you did as well, that once Tech was able to get out of the Big 12 into a bracket in the NCAA, I thought we were going to see the Red Raiders, jolt up again.
I was wanting to be able to see that. I was going to see if that would be a possibility because you'd have been at that 8 or 9, and I feel really good about winning that first round. And then you're going to run into a 1 or a 2. And then you were going to really find out how good or average you were. Were you the team that beat Louisville in Madison Square Garden, or were you the team that struggled to close games, struggled to play on the road, had some, issues with chemistry here and there? I don't think it was a big issue, but there were still some times where you felt that the chemistry wasn't quite right. And I go back and all my reference points are Eddie Sutton teams, basically.
Right.
And I would always think about Eddie's big, bad teams that he had and how long it took to build those teams. It'd be a 2 or 3 year process where you finally got enough seniors and you were old enough and hopefully talented enough to where you could make a run. And he'd make a run to a couple Final Fours, a couple Elite Eights. But then the next year, what would have inevitably happen, Robert? You would lose a lot of those guys, and you would either be lucky to make it to the NCAA tournament or be an NIT team. That's the way it traditionally works at schools like Texas Tech and Oklahoma State, where you've got to build for something, then you have huge success, and it takes a while to build it back. Well, Chris Beard blew all that up after the Elite Eight team lost what it lost, and then you go to the NCAA tournament after hitting the lottery on 2 grad transfers. So they tried to hit the lottery again on 2 grad transfers that didn't pan out quite or nearly as good as Tariq Owens and Matt Mooney did. But it's kind of a new world with the grad transfer market. I wonder what Eddie would have done with the ease on transfers now.
I think
How much better
it.
could some of those teams after 95 and the early 2000s have been if there would have been that opportunity to grab a great mid-major transfer or a guy that played for Michigan that wasn't happy that wants to come play at Oklahoma State or Texas Tech. What would those teams have looked like? But it's changed that somewhat, where now it's almost expected to have great years one after another, when it's just it's not that easy just to say it and poof, here it is. And it was really hard to replace Jarrett Culver, Mooney, Tariq, Francis, all those guys because they were so special.
Yeah, by the way, your big win in the mythical March Madness was Tech knocking off San Diego State. That's what opened up the bracket for the Red Raiders. So,
And I saw
uh,
them in
uh,
Vegas, Robert, and I think there was a really good chance of that happening if you would have. Yeah,
yeah,
it's interesting because your mythical March Madness has a lot of things that are accurate in it. You would have been an 8 or a 9. Probably would have had either Gonzaga or San Diego State waiting on you because you probably would have gone west. Gonzaga would have been the 1. San Diego State maybe a 2. I don't know. They could have been a 1. But yeah, I
we
think if you were going up against a Gonzaga, you were in big, big trouble. But if you're going up against San Diego
yeah,
State,
ooh.
you're going to have a chance.
Yeah. Gonzaga played Baylor in our final, and Baylor won. The dice went Baylor's way. So that
Coach
was
Drew's not
crazy.
winning any national championship. Come on.
I'm just telling you, that's the way the die fell. We had John Morris on last week. He said, "Hey, we're going to invite you to Waco to hang the banner." Okay, great, love it. I'll show up. Uh, hey,
J-Mo.
the other thing about Chris Beard, and we can't not talk to you without bringing this up. You mentioned Eddie Sutton. Coach Sutton finally makes it into the Hall of Fame. There was a great push. I mean, Kim Mulkey, when she was in Stillwater for a game, said, "Look, if I make it in and Coach Sutton doesn't, I may, and she wouldn't have done this, but she goes, I may refuse my entry because Coach Sutton deserves it." Chris Beard and the Red Raiders, the gesture that day, and I know that was a frustrating loss. Cowboys found a way to win that game, but the Red Raiders come out with the shirts honoring Coach Sutton and basically projecting him to be in the Hall of Fame and campaigning for him to be in the Hall of Fame. I thought that was of course, Sean is a valued member of Coach Beard's staff, and Sean's a great friend of mine. I'm so proud of Sean for what he's done in his life because you and I
Amen.
both know this. We've been in athletics long enough. If you're a front runner, it's easy to front run, but when things really hit it and you face adversity, which Sean did,
Mm.
and man, what the way he overcome his issues, and I know people there in Lubbock love his contributions to Texas Tech basketball, but I thought that was a fantastic gesture by Chris Beard, and it shows the class of that program.
Well, I got full body chills just thinking about it. Here I am with my OSU background, and I was so proud of my current allegiance with Texas Tech for them to go out. And I didn't know they were going to spring those shirts, and I was just like, yeah, kind of teared up, when I saw it.
Oh,
And then you got the retro uniforms for both sides, and I knew it was going to be a tough day for me, and it was on a personal level. But yeah, isn't that cool? I mean, because you got two teams that are trying to claw each other's eyes out to win, but you see what really matters. And I'll tell you, as soon as I heard the news on Coach Sutton, I texted Chris Beard and I said, it wasn't very long, but I said, thank you for fighting so hard for Eddie. And he sent me back a picture of him and Coach, where he had visited him at Gallagher-Iba Arena, and he's kneeled down there, talking to Coach, and I'm like, whew. He did that he went on a big, long campaign stop at one of our coaches' shows on one random Thursday night where we got into it, and I saved that audio and put it out because I'm not somebody that's going to change anybody's minds, but I was certainly campaigning for Eddie as hard as I could as well on social media and whatnot, and then putting out that kind of audio. But I just thought well, you're right. I mean, to have, a rival school come in and have 806 on the back, the number of Coach Sutton's wins, just it's a big campaign slogan when you're getting ready to try and beat somebody, man to man. And yeah, that was a special day. That sure was. And one thing about Texas Tech and Oklahoma State is we're a lot more alike than we want to admit, and I think that causes fights, like sibling almost. It's like
mascots, hand signs. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's just we're a lot more alike than we want to admit, and that's one thing that's made it easy on me to have success out here.
And obviously you've had tremendous success and have had a chance to call some great teams, whether it's Tech going to the finals in the NCAA tournament in basketball or that baseball team. And you would have been, this would have been fantastic for you being an OSU alum, April 3rd, 4th, and 5th. You were going to be really the second biggest or the second recent conference team to come in and play a series in the brand new O'Brate Stadium, and being the
Heartbreaking.
visiting radio announcer, you would have been in a booth that you wouldn't have been able to believe compared to the closet they stick you in Alley P.
No, I'd had that circled for a long time. Robert, this is what I call the good year. Okay, 2020. If you're an even year for me, it's a good year. Okay, because you only have to go to West Virginia once, and you only have to go to Norman once, and you get to go to Stillwater twice. Okay, so the even years are my good years, and this year we didn't have to go to Norman at all because we played the Sooners in the old Ford Center there, Chesapeake. So, I mean, it was going to be a great year. And then this one was, circled. I already had my Payne County brethren ready to visit and cook and go to baseball and all those things. And then O'Brate would have been just unbelievable. Second conference series in it behind TCU. Yeah, that's another part about, you're riding down I-35 and you just see your life kind of falling apart, and it's fallen apart for millions during this ordeal. So I'm not saying I've had it harder than anybody else, and I know I haven't, but that was a tough day because I was sure looking forward to coming to that series.
No, and Tech has, I still say in the present tense, Tech has a tremendous baseball team. I think this was going to be a year that you were going to see the Big 12 have a heavy presence again in the NCAA tournament, and maybe even have multiple teams in Omaha.
Yeah.
And certainly Tech and Oklahoma State were two of them. Oklahoma was playing red hot. Texas, you kind of had the feeling was better. Baylor was better than what I thought they were going to be. And TCU's always tough with Schlossnagle and the effort the Horned Frogs put out. I thought this would have been a great Big 12 baseball season, but
we were loaded. Yeah. We were loaded, and I don't know. Has there ever been a bigger screw? I mean, certainly Stillwater and Oklahoma State have felt the wrath of the NCAA selection committees over the years, but when they matched us and Oklahoma State up for the Super Regional, that took a College World Series team out from the Big 12, because I don't think there's any doubt that both the Red Raiders and the Cowboys would have been up there if they hadn't have matched them up. I'm still pissed off about that. Still really angry about that.
And the game 3 was an all-timer.
All-timer, no doubt.
Yeah.
All-timer. People still talking about it to this day down here. I mean, it was just the fire of the rivalry, and when those orange and black uniforms come in anywhere, they still command a ton of respect, and the Tech fans and the OSU fans pissed off at each other the entire time. I mean, it had all kinds of drama, and I still can't believe I made it through it.
The one person I had a chance to say something to after that basketball game in Stillwater was Kirby Hocutt, your athletic director, and I went up to him afterwards, said, hey, I get to hear you a bunch on Sirius XM because they have him on the Big 12 a bunch, as they do you as well. And I said, first of all, you do a great job on that. Second of all, that was a classy move by your basketball team and your athletic department today. And just thanked him. He seems like an outstanding guy to work with. What's the feel you get from him these days? Because I know he, like every other athletic director out there in the Big 12 and beyond, there's a lot at stake with what's going on. What kind of feel do you get from Kirby about what's going to happen here, heading toward the fall?
Yeah, I think one thing that he portrays is an overall calm, and that's been appreciated. You start to find out what kind of leaders you have nationally, regionally, statewide, university-wide, school-wide when something like this happens. And if you listen to our coaches down to Tom Stone, the soccer coach, he is just glowed about the open lines of communication. And, with him, his season's coming around faster than most, So there's a lot to lose there for him, which he has the best team that he'll ever have waiting on tap to go this year. So there's a lot of obviously questions and what ifs, but I just feel a cautious optimism from him that things will get straightened out, that we'll be able to recover from all of the damage that has been brought. But you kind of expect that, I think, from leaders trying to keep you from steering it into the ditch on this deal, which I've felt like doing several times. But I just think this guy is very level-headed, very, very smart, and has surrounded himself with such talented people. That's one thing that I've just been struck by at Texas Tech, from right there at the top to the deputy AD. You got Tony and Geo and all these guys that are behind him. So you got that great leadership network at the top, and then all the way down to just the people that do the promotions and the tickets. I mean, it's just, you're all in for Texas Tech, and that's the way it is here. Even though it is a town of 250,000 people, it is all about the Red Raiders here. So we're all one big family, and it's got that Stillwater feel to it as far as that community goes. And if you don't band together, then you're not going to make it. So everybody's trying to pull it together as much as possible here to get through these times. I'm going to ask you this: are we going to play football, Robert?
Well, ask the head coach, and he said yeah, and got in trouble for it.
And we're going to report May 1st.
Yeah, well, and see, I had actually talked to him before he did that, and I said, Mike, May 1st is okay for your staff, which he said that, which he did. To give the accurate quote was, he wanted to bring the staff back to the building May 1st, and then the team as soon as possible after. Well, the soonest possible, I told him, was May 31st. Nothing. The NCAA had set that for the recruiting activity, no in-person, on or off-campus recruiting, and the Big 12 had set that for any kind of meetings, workouts,
Yeah.
practices, organized activities. And so I know he knew that date. And then, but here's my thought. Okay, first of all, we know this. There's a lot of athletic departments, and I think Tech's included, along with Oklahoma State, Iowa State. Maybe Oklahoma and Texas could survive not having a football season. They're the only two in the league. Everybody else, if they don't have a football season, we're going to see sports dropped. We're going to see people let go. We're going to see things we don't want to see. And I think the entire league, even Bob Bowlesby, the commissioner in the conference office, wants to see the sports played. So I think there'll be a concerted effort. I do believe in our medical professionals. I think by the time we get around to July 1, I think there's a good chance we have a much better read on where the COVID's going, and maybe even have an idea of a cure, some sort of vaccine or some way to control it.
At least a treatment.
Sure. But I will say this. I'm not 100% it starts on time. I'm not I do think it'll be in the fall, and I'm not 100% that it won't start like golf is here in about a month and a half, with maybe limited attendance in the first few games until you figure it out. And even then, I don't think they'll let people sit next to. I think that it'll be a spaced out stadium.
Mm-hmm,
and I had that conversation with Matt Walters from K-State last week. And I know I'm going over here, Patrick, back in studio. Give me a minute, because I want to let Geoff wrap it up. We talked about, can you call a game with somewhat of an empty stadium? It would be weird, but I think people would accept it, and I think the ADs would accept it, because I know Gundy said this and got in trouble for it, but I'm going to say it. If we want to keep our athletics going at the college level the way we've kind of been used to it and enjoyed it, we got to get money flowing again. I know that people don't want to, it's on the back of college athletes, but here's the thing, and Geoff, you know them as well as I do. You ask the players if they want to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they want to play. Coaches
Yes.
want to coach, and you and I want to announce. So
Yes.
I'm hoping where there's a will, that's my motto. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Well, I think we figured out how to beat a lot of tough stuff, and I think we'll figure out how to beat this as well. And I really do. And I think once you start to get, like, we've had nothing but panic, and dismay for a long time. Once there start to be some positive um, headlines, which I know has been hard lately, but you start to see some positive things coming out of people's mouths, that's going to stem that panic. And then we're going to start rolling the ball the other way, where it's okay. Now we're beating this thing, we're fighting it back. How do we keep that rolling? And then the panic is in the distant rear view, and then you just feel better and better about things, and all of a sudden you want to go get back out. You don't want to stay home. You don't want to hide anymore. But it might be a while for that to happen, but I think eventually that will happen. You put that panic in the distance, and you're going to start taking large leaps towards getting back to where we all love. Yeah, and I'm with you. I mean, you talk to these baseball players, there's not a one of them right now that wouldn't go play, wouldn't get on a plane, wouldn't get in a hotel. I mean, you might call them crazy, but that's the way they're going to operate. So I'm with you.
Yeah. Hey, also, I know I can speak for Dave, and I know you're close with Dave. Anything we can do to help you? You're still doing a radio show, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just because I know this like you said, driving home from that Big 12 tournament, basketball and then baseball. That's your chunks. Just like Dave lost a
Yeah.
lot of baseball TV. Yeah, I understand. I'm only the football sideline guy, so far I haven't lost any of that stuff. But if there's anything we can do to help, let us know, and we got your back, Bubba.
Yeah, thanks, Robert, man. I love coming on with you. It makes me feel like I've touched my toe in Payne County just a little bit. So we'll be seeing you, and thanks a lot, man.
All right, take care. Geoff Haxton,
Okay.
OSU grad, has done his alma mater proud, and